The billionaire CEO who couldn't sign, and his temporary assistant saved everything. Before we start the story, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. The cup fell. It didn't tip gently. It didn't slide with cinematic grace. It dropped from Jenna Riley's tray like a bird that forgot how to fly, flipped twice in the air, and shattered on the wooden floor of the Brew and Rain Cafe with a crash that made half the customers look up from their laptops. Hot coffee splashed everywhere. The dark liquid formed a perfect puddle around Jenna's white shoes that had already survived 2 back-to-back shifts, 14 hours on her feet, and were begging for mercy. "Great," she muttered to the puddle. "You too, huh? Everybody giving up today." A customer at table 3 let out a loud sigh, the kind designed to be heard. Jenna grabbed the dish towel hanging from her apron, knelt down and began to wipe. Her knees cracked, her back complained. Her brain sent an urgent alert. "System shutting down. Please turn off human immediately." "Sorry, Puddle," she whispered as she cleaned. "It's not your fault, it's mine. I was born with this special gift of turning Monday into Monday twice in the same day." The bell on the door rang. Jenna didn't look. Another customer. Another complicated order. Another person who would ask for oat milk but actually wanted almond, but not real almond, just the idea of almond. She finished cleaning, stood up with effort, and tossed the towel on the counter with more force than she meant to. This wasn't even her usual shift. Jenna was only covering the ground floor location that day. She usually worked at the main Brew and Rain store 2 blocks down. The bell rang again. "Easy, bell," she grumbled. "You don't need to announce every person like it's round 2 of a boxing match." Behind her, someone cleared their throat. Jenna turned and found a man standing in the middle of the cafe completely still, as if he were waiting for permission to exist. Dark suit, impeccable. Haircut that looked expensive, upright posture, chin lifted, and his right arm completely immobilized, held in a navy sling that stood out against his charcoal gray suit. He didn't say a word. He just stood there looking at her with an expression Jenna couldn't decode. It wasn't irritation. It wasn't impatience. It was something worse. Silent expectation. "Hi," she said, forcing a smile that barely reached her eyes. "Sorry for the delay. What can I get you?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He lifted his left arm, the only one working, and pointed vaguely at his own chest, as if trying to explain something without speaking. Jenna blinked. "Sir, if you're here to complain about a cappuccino, you'll need to take a number because I ran out of patience about." She checked the imaginary watch on her wrist, 12 hours ago. Silence. The man kept staring at her. A warning sign crawled up Jenna's spine. That heavy kind of silence that comes right before something really good or really, really bad. "I'm not," he began, his voice deep, controlled, but oddly hesitant. "I'm not here to complain." "Oh." Jenna crossed her arms. "So you're just standing there? Because I don't want to be rude, but the cafe is full and I am at the edge of human function." He blinked. Once, slowly. And then, for the first time, Jenna noticed the details. The small cut on his eyebrow. The way he held himself, too stiff, like he was fighting something. The navy sling that wasn't just an accessory, it was necessary. "I need help," he finally said. Jenna frowned. "Help ordering a coffee? Because I can recommend the Americano. Simple, straightforward, no drama." "No." He took a breath and she realized he was nervous. "I need someone who can write." Pause. "Sir, everyone here can write. Half of them are writing indie movie scripts no one will ever watch." He didn't laugh. "I need someone right now, for a meeting, on the 23rd floor. He glanced at his immobilized arm as if it had betrayed him publicly. "I can't sign anything. I can't take notes, and my personal assistant has been stuck in traffic for 40 minutes. Jenna looked at him, then at the growing line of customers, then at the still damp puddle of coffee on the floor. "Sir, I work in a cafe. I'm not, I don't know, an emergency executive assistant." "I know." He stepped closer. "But you're the closest person I found in the last 10 minutes, and I have Japanese investors arriving in 15. Jenna felt her brain rebooting. Investors, 23rd floor, meeting. Wait. She narrowed her eyes. "You work here? Like in the building?" "I own the building." Complete silence. Jenna looked at him again. Perfect suit. The posture of someone who never apologized in his life. The The sling looked like it was probably custom-made. Your realization hit her like lightning. Logan Ford? He didn't confirm. He didn't need to. Jenna's blood froze, warmed up, and then evaporated. Oh no, she stepped back twice. No. I did not just act rude to the CEO of the entire building. Logan Ford, because it was him, it was really him, tilted his head slightly to the side. Technically, he said with annoying calm, you were rude before you knew who I was, so the intention still counts. Jenna covered her face with her hands. I'm going to be fired? I do not even work for you, and I'm going to be fired. No one is getting fired. He looked at the watch on his left wrist. But I need an answer in the next 30 seconds, because my brother is going to use this meeting to embarrass me in front of international investors, and I refuse to give him that victory. Jenna lowered her hand slowly. Your brother? Miles, my older brother, chief operating officer, and the most competitive person you will ever meet. He held out his left hand, the only one that worked. So, do you accept? Jenna looked at the hand, looked at the door, looked at the rain starting to fall outside, heavy and relentless, covering Seattle like a gray curtain. The universe was clearly laughing at her. How long? She asked, her voice coming out weaker than she intended. 2 hours, at most. And after? Logan Ford smiled. It wasn't a full smile. It was just a slight curve at the corner of his mouth, but it carried something Jenna did not expect. Desperation disguised as confidence. After that, you go back to the cafe, and I promise never to step into your space without warning again. Jenna took a deep breath. She reached out, shook his hand. If I get fired for this, I'm coming back and throwing hot coffee on your sling, he laughed. Soft, quick. There. And before Jenna could step back, Logan Ford turned, pushed the door open with his left shoulder, because his right hand was still useless, and walked out into the storm. Jenna stood still for a full 3 seconds. Then she murmured to the espresso machine, "This is not going to end well." The machine released steam, as if it agreed. The elevator went up so fast, Jenna felt her stomach drop 3 floors before the rest of her body followed. She was dripping, literally dripping. Seattle rain did not play around. It had soaked her completely in the 20 seconds between the cafe door and the entrance of Ford Dynamics. Now she left a trail of droplets on the charcoal gray elevator carpet, like she was the little mermaid walking out of the sea, only less magical and much more embarrassing. Logan Ford stood beside her, perfectly dry, because of course he had an umbrella. "Are you all right?" he asked, glancing at the puddles forming around her white sneakers. "Great," Jenna replied, twisting the hem of her uniform shirt. Water dripped out. "I love starting the day looking like I survived a shipwreck." He didn't laugh, but the corners of his mouth twitched, almost impossible to notice. Like his face had forgotten how to do that correctly. The elevator stopped on the 23rd floor with a soft, refined ding. The doors opened to a hallway that looked straight out of an architecture magazine. Glass, steel, recessed lights. Plants that probably had a private gardener. Jenna looked down. Her sneakers left a wet mark on the marble floor. "Sorry," she murmured to the floor. "I promise it was not on purpose." Logan looked at her with an expression that shifted between confusion and curiosity. "You're talking to the floor? It deserves respect." Jenna straightened her shoulders, especially after I just ruined it. This time, Logan actually smiled. Quick, limited, but real. They turned left and entered a meeting room that made the word intimidating feel small. Giant glass table. Leather chairs that probably cost her 3 months of salary. An entire wall of windows showing Seattle below, covered in rain and fog. And sitting at the head of the table, a man who looked like an older and slightly more irritated version of Logan. "Late," the man said, without lifting his eyes from the tablet in front of him. 3 minutes, Logan replied, firm. "And I told you I was bringing outside help." The man finally looked up. His eyes moved from Logan to Jenna, stopped on her soaked sneakers, went up to her dripping hair, and then returned to Logan with one raised eyebrow. "This is the outside help?" Jenna felt her face heat up. "Jenna Riley," she said, reaching out her hand before realizing it was shaking a little. From the cold, from nerves, from pure existential terror. A man didn't shake her hand. "Miles Ford, Chief Operating Officer." He looked at Logan. "You brought the barista from the cafe?" "I brought someone who knows how to write." Logan said, pulling out a chair with his left hand. The chair creaked. He tried to hide it, but Jenna saw the frustration flash across his face. "And someone who's here to help me keep this meeting on track." Miles tilted his head, his eyes shining with something Jenna didn't like at all. "Interesting." He went back to the tablet. "Let's see how this works." Logan sat down. Jenna stood there for a second, not knowing where to put her soaked body. He pointed to the chair next to him with his chin. "Sit." "Please." She sat. The leather chair made a strange sound when her wet clothes touched it. Jenna closed her eyes and sent a quick prayer to the universe. "Please don't let this chair cost more than my entire life." Logan placed a tablet in front of her. The screen was already open to a document called Ford Matsumoto Proposal Q4. "I just need you to write down the main decisions," he said quietly, "and sign for me when needed." Jenna blinked. "Sign? Like, copy your signature?" "It's not copying if I'm asking you to do it." He grabbed a pen from the table with his left hand, tried to hand it to her. The pen slipped, rolled across the table, stopped at the edge. Miles coughed, loud, on purpose. Logan grabbed another pen, handed it to Jenna more carefully. This time it worked. "Just write L. Ford," he instructed. Simple, direct. Jenna held the pen like it was some kind of alien remote control. "Right, L. Ford, easy. Completely legal. Nothing concerning happening here." The door opened. 3 men in suits walked in, followed by a woman carrying a leather folder. As bad, they all had that posture of people who didn't smile unless it had corporate value. Logan stood up. Jenna did too, but a second late, like when everyone starts singing Happy Birthday and you're still looking for your fork. "Gentlemen," Logan said, offering his left hand. "Thank you for coming." The first man shook his hand but frowned when he saw the sling. "Accident?" "Skiing," Logan answered, as if that explained everything. "Nothing serious, just temporary." Miles cleared his throat again. Louder, as if testing how far he could push before someone told him to stop. The meeting started, and Jenna noticed 3 things really fast. First, she didn't understand a single thing they were talking about. ROI projections, Asian market analysis, consolidated operating margin. It was like listening to a foreign language spoken by robots. Second, Logan was trying to keep it together, but his left hand wasn't cooperating. He knocked over a glass of water, tried to grab a document and almost tore it, ran his hand through his hair, and the sling hit the table with a dull thud. Third, Miles was enjoying every second of it. "Logan," Miles said in the middle of an explanation about logistics, "can you pass the blue report?" Logan looked at the stack of papers, tried to grab them with his left hand. The papers slipped, fell to the floor. Silence. Jenna bent down, picked up the papers, and handed them to Miles before the awkwardness became a living creature in the room. "Thank you, Jenna, right?" Miles said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes at all. "Yes," she answered, returning to her chair. Logan didn't look at her, but Jenna saw his jaw tighten. The meeting went on for another 40 minutes. Jenna wrote down everything she could understand, which was basically, agreed on proposal, discussed timeline, and Miles made a face like he wanted to disagree just for sport. In the end, one of the Japanese investors asked for Logan's signature on a preliminary contract. Logan picked up the pen with his left hand, placed the tip on the paper, tried to write. The result looked like a bird falling off a cliff. Miles covered his mouth, but his shoulders shook. Logan stopped, took a deep breath, looked at Jenna. "Can you?" She picked up the pen, wrote L. Ford, in the neatest handwriting she could manage. The investor took the paper, examined it, and nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Ford," Logan smiled. Forced, polite. When the investors left, Miles stood up, adjusted his jacket, and looked at his brother. Interesting strategy. Outsourcing, even the signature. He walked out without waiting for an answer. The door closed. Silence. Logan let out the air slowly, as if he had been holding his breath through the entire meeting. Jenna looked at him. "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. He just stared at his left hand, resting on the table, useless and disobedient. "I hate this," he said quietly, almost to himself. "I hate needing help. I hate that he saw it. I hate that everyone saw it." Jenna bit her lip. She didn't know what to say, so she did the only thing that felt right. She stayed quiet. After a long moment, Logan looked up. "You can stay? The whole day. I'll pay you. Whatever you make at the cafe, I'll double it." Jenna blinked. "Double? Triple, if you can stop my brother from embarrassing me in public again." She looked at the door, at the desk, at his sling, and then, without really knowing why, she said, "Okay." Logan relaxed. Just a little, but enough for Jenna to notice. "Thank you," she nodded, and then whispered to the leather chair, "This is going to go wrong in a way I can't even imagine yet." The chair creaked, as if it agreed. The third contract was where everything fell apart. Not in a dramatic way. No explosions, no shouting, but in a quiet and completely hilarious way that made Jenna bite the inside of her cheek to stop herself from laughing. Logan Ford, CEO, billionaire, a man who had probably never failed at anything, was sitting at his desk trying to sign a budget approval document with his left hand. And the result looked like a duck running from a tornado. "Is that an L?" Jenna asked, tilting her head to try to find an angle where it made sense. Logan dropped the pen on the desk harder than he meant to. It rolled, fell to the floor, and disappeared under the filing drawer. "It was supposed to be an L," he said, his voice controlled but clearly frustrated. "But my left hand has other creative ideas." Jenna picked up the paper and studied the signature like an art critic at the MoMA. "Honestly, it looks more like a scared bird. Like, it's flying, but doesn't know where. It just knows it needs to get out of there." Logan stared at her. She stared back. And then he did something unexpected. He laughed. Not a full laugh, more like a quick breath through the nose, paired with a crooked half-smile that completely changed his face. "A scared bird," he repeated, shaking his head. "Great. Exactly the image I want to give the shareholders." Jenna carefully folded the paper and slipped it into the pocket of her apron, which she was still wearing because no one had offered her dry clothes and she wasn't going to ask. "Hey, I'm keeping this," she said. 20 years from now, when you're some kind of international business giant, I'm selling this as conceptual art, the scared duck phase of Logan Ford. It'll be worth a fortune." He raised an eyebrow. "You're collecting my bad signatures?" "Obviously." Jenna grabbed another pen from the desk and handed it to him. "Now try again, and this time, imagine the L is like, I don't know, a mountain, steady, solid, not a panicking bird." Logan took the pen, positioned the paper, took a deep breath like he was preparing to solve an impossible puzzle. He started writing. The pen slipped, the L turned into a backwards Z. Jenna bit her lip, hard. "No," Logan said without looking at her. "Don't laugh." "I'm not laughing. You're shaking." "That's because I'm cold." Jenna crossed her arms, still fighting the laugh with superhuman effort. "My clothes are still wet, remember?" Logan finally looked at her. Really looked at her. He stopped what he was doing and saw her there, soaked, shivering, trying to stay composed while he destroyed his own dignity in slow motion. He stood up. "Wait here." Before Jenna could ask anything, he left the room, half awkward, half fast, bumping the sling into the door by accident. She was alone in his office, and finally let the laugh escape. Soft, quiet. "Scared duck," she whispered to the plant in the corner. A giant fern that seemed to exist only to make the room look fancier. "Did you see that fern? He just drew a scared duck by accident." The fern didn't answer. But Jenna was sure it agreed. Logan came back 3 minutes later holding a gray sweatshirt folded perfectly like it came straight from an expensive store shelf. "Here," he said, offering it to her. "I always keep an extra in case I need to stay late." Jenna took the sweatshirt. It was soft. Ridiculously soft. The kind you put on and instantly understand why people get obsessed with expensive fabrics. "Really?" "You've been shaking for half an hour," he said, returning to his chair. "And I can't pay you to stay here if you end up with pneumonia in the process." Jenna pulled the sweatshirt over her wet uniform. It was huge. The sleeves went past her hands, the hem reached mid-thigh. She looked like a kid wearing adult clothes, but it was warm, and it smelled like something between fancy soap and corporate success, maybe? "Thank you," she said, adjusting the sleeves. Logan shrugged, or tried to. The sling made the movement a bit awkward. "It's the least I can do." They stayed quiet for a moment. Then Jenna pointed at the paper on the table. "Want me to sign for you? I promise I'll make an L that actually looks like an L." Logan hesitated. Jenna could practically see the internal battle happening on his face. Pride versus need. Ego versus reality. Finally, he pushed the paper toward her. "Go ahead." Jenna picked up the pen and wrote L. Ford in the neatest handwriting she could manage. It wasn't perfect, but it was readable, and it definitely didn't look like some kind of bird trying to escape. Done. She handed the paper back. Officially better than a scared duck. Logan took the document, studied the signature, and for the first time since Jenna had walked into his life, he seemed relaxed. Just a little. But enough. Thank you, he said quietly. The office door opened without warning. Miles Ford walked in like he owned the place. Which, technically, he sort of did. Logan, we need to talk about. He stopped when he saw Jenna, looked at the oversized shirt she was wearing, looked at his brother, smiled. Interesting. Jenna felt her stomach drop. Logan straightened up in his chair. What do we need to talk about, Miles? Miles crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe like he had all the time in the world. About tomorrow's meeting with the board. They want to discuss operational continuity. He paused. On purpose. Considering the current circumstances, Jenna didn't need a business degree to understand what that meant. They wanted to discuss whether Logan was still capable of doing his job. Logan didn't answer, but Jenna saw his jaw tighten again. That tiny movement that happened every time Miles walked into a room. I'll be there, Logan said firmly. Of course. Miles pushed the door to leave, but stopped at the last second and looked at Jenna again. And you? You gonna be there too? To write for him? The tone was light, casual, but full of poison. Jenna felt her blood heat. If he needs me, she answered before she could think twice. I'll be there. Miles smiled. That kind of smile that wasn't really a smile. Such dedication, impressive for someone who works at a cafe. And then he left, letting a heavy silence fall behind him. Logan stared at the closed door for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded more tired than frustrated. He's been doing that since we were kids, always looking for the weak spot, always poking until it hurts. Jenna pulled her chair closer to his desk. Is he older? 3 years. Logan ran his left hand through his hair. And he never let me forget it. Jenna picked another paper with a disastrous signature from the pile and folded it carefully. You know what I think? She said, tucking it into her pocket. I think he's scared. Logan looked at her, confused. Scared? Yes. Scared that you can do everything even with one arm out of action. Because if you can run this whole company with one hand tied, literally, imagine what you can do with both working. Logan stayed quiet, but something shifted on his face. Something small, like a light turning on in a dark room. You're strange, he said at last. Thank you. Jenna smiled. I practice. He almost laughed again. Almost. And Jenna realized she was starting to like that almost. The auditorium was packed, like really packed. Rows of black leather chairs arranged in a semicircle, all filled with people in suits who looked like they had never laughed at a joke in their lives. Investors, shareholders, important people. Jenna only ever saw on the news while drinking reheated coffee from the microwave. And she was there, in an oversized borrowed shirt, sitting in the front row, next to Logan Ford, who was about to give a presentation on expansion into the Asian market. With his left hand, "This is going to go wrong," Jenna whispered to her own knee. Really wrong. Logan glanced sideways at her. Are you talking to your legs? She's a good listener. Jenna straightened her posture. Unlike me, who agreed to be here thinking I would only take notes. He almost smiled. But then the lights dimmed. His name was announced over the sound system, and his expression changed completely, becoming that corporate mask of total control Jenna was starting to recognize. Logan walked onto the stage. The audience clapped politely. That standard, precise 4.5-second clap. He stood in the center, alone under the spotlight, holding the presentation remote in his left hand as if it were a grenade ready to explode. Good afternoon, he began, his firm voice echoing through the speakers. Thank you for being here. Today we will discuss our expansion strategy for Southeast Asia, focusing on sustainable partnerships and long-term growth. Jenna let out a relieved breath. So far, so good. Logan pressed the button on the remote. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. The giant screen behind him stayed black. Jenna felt her stomach twist. Logan looked at the remote, turned it sideways. Tried another button. The screen flickered, but instead of showing the first slide, a huge red error message appeared. File not found. Someone in the audience coughed. Logan tried clicking again, but the remote slipped from his left hand. It fell onto the stage floor with a loud thud, amplified by the lapel microphone. Silence. The kind of silence that feels physical. Jenna saw the exact moment panic crossed his eyes. Quick. almost invisible, but there. And then she did something completely insane. She stood, walked onto the stage. The entire audience turned to look at her. This girl in an oversized shirt, hair still a little messy from the rain, white sneakers stained with coffee. Jenna picked the remote up from the floor, blew on it as if it had dust, and handed it to Logan with a smile she hoped looked confident. "Technology, right?" she said into his microphone, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It always chooses the worst possible moment to have an existential crisis." A few nervous laughs echoed through the room. Jenna grabbed the laptop on the side table, clicked in 3 different places, and amazingly, the presentation appeared on the screen. "There," she gave the laptop a little tap. "Good girl, now cooperate." More laughter, this time genuine. Logan looked at her with an expression Jenna couldn't interpret. Gratitude? Surprise? Panic hidden behind relief? She took a step back, but he held her wrist with his left hand, a little awkward. "Stay," he said softly, "please." Jenna blinked. "Here, on the stage? Just stay close, in case something else happens." She swallowed hard and nodded. Logan went back to the presentation. Jenna stood there, slightly to the side, trying to be invisible and failing miserably because everyone kept looking at her. The presentation continued. Logan spoke with confidence, completely in control of the content. But every time he needed to change the slide, his left hand trembled slightly before pressing the button. On the 10th slide, he tried to point at a chart on the screen. The sling hit the lapel microphone. A loud thump echoed through the room, followed by electronic feedback. Jenna covered her mouth to keep from laughing. Not because it was funny, but because laughing was easier than dealing with the secondhand embarrassment crushing her chest. Logan froze for half a second. Then he adjusted the microphone with his left hand, which made him look even more awkward, and continued as if nothing had happened. "As you can see in the chart," he said, his voice controlled but carrying a tension Jenna could hear. "The projected return surpasses the initial expectations by approximately." The remote slipped from his hand again. This time Jenna caught it in the air before it hit the floor. The audience applauded. Truly applauded. Not a polite clap, a real one with a few laughs mixed in. Logan looked at her. Jenna shrugged. "Barista reflexes," she whispered. "We catch a lot of fallen cups." He let out a long breath, and for the first time since he stepped on stage, he looked human again. The presentation ended 10 minutes later. Logan thanked everyone. The audience clapped, warmer this time, probably because Jenna had turned the disaster into something almost charming. They walked off the stage together. And that was when Miles appeared. He was leaning against the wall in the side hallway, arms crossed, a small and dangerous smile on his face. "Impressive," he said, blocking the way. "You basically needed a babysitter on stage." Logan stopped. Jenna felt the tension radiating from him. "I finished the presentation," Logan replied, his voice low but steady, "and the investors approved." "Approved what?" Miles tilted his head. "The presentation or the improvisation show done by your temporary assistant?" Jenna felt her blood boil. "Look," she said, stepping forward before she could stop herself. "I don't know what your problem is, but—" "Jenna," Logan interrupted, gentle but firm. "No." She looked at him, and she saw something on his face that made her chest tighten. It wasn't anger, it was exhaustion. The kind that comes from fighting the same battle 1,000 times and never truly winning. Miles stepped back, his hands raised in fake surrender. "Just being honest, little brother." He patted Logan's shoulder, on purpose, on the side with the sling. "You should think about taking some time off, at least until you're fully recovered. No one would judge you." And then he walked out, leaving those poisoned words hanging in the air. Logan stayed still, quiet, looking at the floor. Jenna waited. She did not know what to say. There was no script for this. Finally, Logan lifted his eyes. "He is right." "What?" Jenna frowned. "No, he is not. I almost fell apart in there, in front of everyone." He ran his left hand over his face. "And you had to save me." "I did not save you." Jenna crossed her arms. "I just helped, the way you asked." "But I should not need help." His voice came out louder than he intended. Then he took a deep breath and pulled himself together. "Sorry, I just—" He stopped. "Try it again." "I am scared." Jenna blinked. "Scared of what?" Logan looked at the sling, at his right hand immobilized and useless. "Scared that he is right, that I cannot do this anymore, that everything I built will fall apart because I cannot even hold a remote control correctly. Jenna stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she gave him a light tap on the shoulder, on the side that was not hurt. "You know what I saw in there?" she said. "I saw a man who kept going even when everything went wrong, who did not run off the stage, who finished the presentation, and the investors approved it. You did that, not me." Logan looked at her, really looked, as if he was trying to believe it. "You are good at this," he said softly. "At what?" "At making things feel less impossible." Jenna smiled. "That is because I have seen truly impossible things, like trying to make a triple decaf oat milk cappuccino during the 8 a.m. rush." He laughed. Finally. A short laugh, but real. And Jenna realized she liked that sound more than she should. The boardroom was different from the other rooms. Older, dark wood on the walls, framed portraits of every previous CEO of Ford Dynamics, all staring with seriousness frozen in oil paint. The table was so large, Jenna was sure someone could play bowling there. She was sitting in the corner, trying to be invisible, taking notes on a tablet while Logan participated in a quarterly executive meeting. Everything was relatively calm, until Miles walked in. He did not knock. He just pushed the door open and entered as if he had been invited, which technically he had been because he was chief operating officer. But there was something in the way he walked in that made Jenna feel a knot in her stomach. He was carrying a tablet and a smile. It was never a good sign when Miles smiled. "Sorry for the interruption," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "But I thought it was important to bring some updated numbers on executive leadership productivity." Logan was in the middle of explaining something about logistics. He stopped, turned slowly to look at his brother. "Now, Miles? Now." Miles connected the tablet to the projector. The huge screen on the wall lit up. "It will be quick, I promise." Jenna saw Logan clench his jaw. That movement she already knew, the sign that he was preparing for something bad. The first slide appeared. It was a photo of Logan on the stage, the same presentation from yesterday, but the angle captured the exact moment the remote fell from his hand. The slide title said, "Adaptation or Limitation." The silence in the room grew heavy. Miles clicked to the next slide. It was a chart, red and green, bars going up and down. "As you can see," Miles began, pointing with a laser pen, "there has been a 23% increase in administrative task completion time in the last 2 weeks. Coincidentally, the same period in which our CEO is." He paused, looking directly at Logan's cast, operating at reduced capacity. Jenna felt her blood boil. One of the directors, a gray-haired man Jenna was certain had never smiled, frowned. "Miles, what exactly is the point of this analysis?" "The point," Miles replied, turning off the laser pen with a dramatic click, "is that effective leadership requires full functionality, and maybe temporarily we should consider redistributing responsibilities. Until my brother is," he smiled again, "fully recovered." Logan did not say anything, but Jenna saw the shame cross his face. Fast. Painful. Like a paper cut that burns before you even notice. Miles clicked to the last slide. It was another photo of Logan, this time trying to sign a document. The signature looked exactly like it was, a messy, crooked, childish disaster. The caption said, "Compromised leadership," and that was when Jenna completely lost her patience. "Excuse me," she said, raising her hand like she was in a classroom. Every head turned toward her. Miles lifted an eyebrow. "Yes, Jenna, right? The temporary assistant?" "That is right." Jenna stood, holding the tablet like a shield. "I have a question about your extremely professional and not personal at all presentation." Miles crossed his arms. "Go ahead. How long did you spend putting that PowerPoint together?" She tilted her head. "Because, I work in a cafe, and even I know that using a photo making fun of your boss in a board meeting is kind of, I don't know, something a very insecure person would do." Total silence. One of the directors, a woman with red glasses, covered her mouth. But Jenna saw the corner of her lips trembling. Miles blinked. Once, slowly. "Excuse me." "Oh, you heard me." Jenna took a step forward. "Because let's be honest here. You're not worried about productivity. You're worried that your brother keeps doing his job even with one arm out of commission. Which, to be honest, says a lot more about his competence than anything else." Miles opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "This is true?" Jenna finished. "Yes, I know, and everyone here knows it too." The difference is that I don't get paid enough to pretend I don't. The director with the red glasses let out a short laugh. Quick, but audible. Miles looked at Logan, waiting for his brother to step in. Logan was sitting still, staring at Jenna with an expression she couldn't read. Shock? Gratitude? Fear that she had just gotten herself fired? Jenna, Logan finally said, his voice low but steady. Thank you. But I can. No, she cut him off. With all respect, you can't. Because every time you try to defend yourself, he uses it against you. So let me talk, since I have nothing to lose anyway. She turned back to Miles. You know what I've seen since I started working here? Jenna continued. I've seen a CEO who showed up to a meeting with Japanese investors 2 days after breaking his arm. He didn't cancel, didn't postpone. He showed up, made the presentation, and closed the deal, with one hand working. She pointed at the frozen slide on the screen. That signature you're mocking? He tried to do it alone before asking me for help, because he hates asking for help. And even so, he asked, because he understands that leading isn't about looking perfect. It's about getting the job done. However, it has to be done. The silence now was different. Miles was red, not with anger, with embarrassment. The director with the red glasses cleared her throat. She has a point, Miles. Her voice was firm. This presentation was inappropriate. Another director nodded. I agree. Questioning leadership based on a temporary physical limitation is at the very least, problematic. Miles turned off the projector with a sharp click. I was only presenting data, he said, his voice tense. But if you prefer to ignore, we prefer to focus on results, the director cut in, and Logan's results remain solid. So unless you have something substantial to present, I suggest we end this discussion. Miles looked around the room. No one was on his side. He picked up his tablet, adjusted his jacket, and walked out. The door closed with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than a slam. Jenna sat down, slowly, only now realizing what she had just done. I'm probably going to be fired, or sued, or both. Logan cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a 10-minute break. The directors began leaving. The woman with the red glasses walked past Jenna and murmured, Well said. When the room emptied, only Logan and Jenna remained. He sat there, quiet, staring at the table. Jenna held the tablet tightly, bracing herself for the inevitable scolding. But when Logan finally spoke, his voice came out. Fragile. No one has ever done that for me. Jenna blinked. Done what? Defended me. He lifted his eyes, and Jenna saw something there that made her chest tighten. Without wanting anything in return, without fear of the consequences, you just did it. She shrugged, trying to look casual even though her heart was racing. He was being unfair. Someone needed to say it. I should have spoken up. Logan shook his head. But I froze, because part of me believed he was right, that I'm limited, that maybe I won't be able to stop. Jenna stood up, walked around the table and sat in the chair beside him. You're not limited, you're hurt. That's different. Hurt heals. Limited is permanent, and you are definitely not permanent. Logan laughed, weak but real. You meant the limitation isn't permanent, right? You understood. Jenna smiled. My point still stands. He kept looking at her, for too long, the kind of look that makes you realize something has shifted, even if you don't know what yet. Thank you, he said quietly. Truly. You're welcome. Jenna stood. Now let's get out of here before I'm arrested for corporate misconduct. When they stepped out of the room, Jenna murmured to her own sneaker. We survived. Again. I don't know how, but we survived. The sneaker squeaked against the floor, as if saying, for now. The lights went out. Not gradually. Not with a warning. They just went out, as if someone had turned off all of Seattle with a giant switch. Jenna was in the middle of a sentence, explaining to Logan why he needed to sign 3 copies of the same contract, when everything dropped into darkness. Oh no, she said into the empty room. Please tell me this isn't happening. Logan's voice came from the direction of the desk. The backup generator should turn on in a few seconds. They waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Nothing. Or not, Logan added with a sigh Jenna could hear even in the dark. She grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. The weak light hit his face, and the controlled frustration he was clearly trying to hide. No power means no electronic system on the doors, he said, standing up and walking to the glass door of the conference room. He pushed it. It didn't move. Locked automatically for safety. Jenna blinked. Wait, are we stuck? Temporarily. That's just a polite way of saying, yes, we are. She pointed her phone at the door as if the light could magically unlock it. How long until someone notices? Logan checked his phone. The screen glowed blue in the dark. Maintenance was notified. They said it could take up to an hour. An hour? Jenna turned to the glass door. Door, I've always treated you well. I never slammed you. I never complained that you're too heavy. Please open. The door didn't answer. Logan went back to the table and sat, his silhouette lit only by the phone. You really do talk to everything, don't you? Objects deserve respect. Jenna sat too, placing her phone on the table with the flashlight pointed upward, creating a strange, ghost-like glow. They carry us through life. The least we can do is thank them. He tilted his head, watching her with genuine curiosity. You're the strangest person I've ever met. Thank you. Jenna smiled in the dim light. I practice every day. Silence. The kind that appears when you remove all distractions and what's left is people. Two people, locked in a dark room, with nothing to do except exist in the same space. Jenna drummed her fingers on the table. Logan crossed his left arm over his chest, the right one still immobilized, useless. So, Jenna said, breaking the silence because quiet was never her strength, should we, ration air? Or does that only apply to submarines? Logan laughed, a short, surprised laugh. The room has passive ventilation. We'll survive. Oh good, what a relief. She leaned back in her chair. Because suffocating on the 23rd floor wasn't on my to-do list today. He smiled. Jenna could see it, even in the shadows. What was on your list today? Make it to 6 o'clock without getting fired. She looked at an imaginary watch. Doing pretty well so far, except for being stuck in a room. Logan stayed quiet for a moment, then he asked, his voice softer. Do you like working at the cafe? Jenna paused. No one ever asked that. People assumed it was temporary. They assumed she was between jobs. They assumed she had something better waiting somewhere. I like the people, she said honestly. I like making the perfect coffee for someone having a terrible day. I like when a regular walks in and I already know their order before they say anything. She paused. But no, I don't like working there. I work there because it's what I can get. For now. Logan nodded slowly. For now. Yeah. Jenna looked at her hand. Seattle is expensive. I came here thinking find something better. But something better always asks for experience I don't have. So I stay at the cafe. I work double shifts. I survive. She shrugged. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. Silence again. But this time it was different. Less awkward. More real. I'm afraid, Logan said suddenly. Jenna turned to him. Of what? He looked at the sling, at his right hand, invisible in the dark, yet always there, reminding him of his own vulnerability. Of depending on other people. The words came out slowly, as if each one hurt. I've always been the one who solves things, the one who leads, the one who never asks for help, and now, he gestured with his left hand. I can't even sign my own name. Jenna stayed quiet. Let the silence fill the space between them. You know what I think? She said at last. I think you always depended on other people. You just didn't notice because you decided when to ask for help. Now you need it. And that's scary, because it feels like weakness, but it isn't. Logan looked at her. It isn't? No. Jenna leaned forward. Weakness is pretending you can do everything alone and falling apart in silence. Strength is saying I need help and letting someone in. Even when it hurts. He took a deep breath. Let it out slowly. Miles was always better at asking for help. Logan said, his voice carrying something that sounded like a mix of envy and hurt. He asks, he delegates, he trusts, and everyone loves him for it. I always thought that if I asked, people would see weakness. They would replace me. Jenna shook her head. People see weakness when you lie, when you pretend, when you show up broken and act like you're perfectly fine. She pointed at him. You're here, hurt, vulnerable, and still leading. That's strength. Logan looked at her. For a long time. The kind of look that makes the air feel heavier, filled with something neither of them knew how to name yet. How do you do that? He asked quietly. Do what? Make everything feel possible, even when it isn't. Jenna gave a weak laugh. Practice. A lot of practice pretending I know what I'm doing. She looked down at her hands. I spend my whole life proving myself, proving I deserve the job, proving I can pay the rent, proving I'm not just another girl who came to the big city and failed. Her voice dropped. It's exhausting. But I keep going, because the alternative is giving up. And I'm terrible at giving up. Logan reached out his left hand, the only one that worked, and touched her wrist lightly. It wasn't a romantic gesture. It was something deeper. Connection. I see you, he said. Not the temporary assistant, not the barista, you. And you're impressive. Jenna felt her chest tighten. Not in a bad way, in a way that scared her, because it felt too good. You're only saying that because I saved you from being embarrassed in public several times. I'm saying it because it's true. Silence. This time, heavy, full of things unsaid. The light came back, suddenly, bright, too bright after the darkness. Jenna blinked, adjusting her eyes. Logan let go of her wrist, quickly, like he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't. The door clicked as the electronic lock released. A maintenance worker appeared on the other side of the glass, waving with a walkie-talkie. Everything okay in there? Everything's fine, Logan answered, standing up and straightening his tie with his left hand. Jenna grabbed her phone, turned off the flashlight, and stood as well. They walked out together. In the hallway, Logan stopped. Jenna. She turned. Yes, he opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Thank you, for staying, and for listening. She smiled, that slightly crooked smile that showed up when she didn't know what to do with her emotions. You're welcome, boss. He rolled his eyes. Don't call me boss. What? Jenna began walking backward down the hall. But you are my boss, technically, temporarily. She checked her watch. 45 more minutes until my shift at the cafe. Logan shook his head, but he was smiling. When Jenna turned the corner, she murmured to her own shoe. We almost had a moment there. Like an actual moment. Her shoe creaked, as if saying, I know, and you're terrified. And she was. Jenna was putting her notebooks into her backpack when Logan appeared at his office door with a strange expression on his face. It wasn't his usual corporate expression. It looked like hesitation and maybe nervousness. I have an external meeting tomorrow, he said, getting straight to the point. In Bellevue. With clean tech investors. And he paused, straightened his tie with his left hand. I need you to go with me. Jenna froze with the zipper halfway up. With me? Like, with me? You're the only person who can read my duck-shaped signature and turn it into something presentable. He almost smiled. And you're good with people. Better than I am most of the time. Jenna felt something strange in her chest, something warm, uncomfortable, and good all at once. She looked at her backpack, at the window, anywhere except at him. I don't know. External meetings sound important, and I'm just essential, he interrupted. You're essential. Silence. The word hung in the air between them, too heavy and meaningful to be casual. Jenna swallowed hard. I need to think. Logan nodded, as if he understood more than she had actually said. All right, but if you decide to go, we leave at 9 in the morning. She nodded and left before her confused emotions could betray her. The next morning, Jenna stood at the bus stop, convinced she had made the right decision. I'm not going. It's too much pressure. I'm going to ruin something. He'll realize I don't belong in that world, and he'll politely let me go, and I'll go back to the cafe and everything will be like before. The bus appeared at the corner. Crowded. The kind of crowded where people are pressed against the windows like sardines in a can. Jenna looked at the bus. Looked at the sky. Sighed. You're joking with me, right, universe? The universe did not answer. The bus drove past without stopping. Too full for more passengers. Jenna stayed there, alone at the stop, her backpack on her shoulders, and a decision already made without her noticing. She went back. Logan was walking out of the building when he saw her arriving, a little out of breath, hair messy from the wind. He stopped at the car door, a black sedan so perfect it looked like it came straight out of a luxury commercial. You came back, he said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement, with a slight smile at the corner of his mouth. The bus went by packed. Jenna adjusted her backpack strap. The universe basically forced me. Of course. Logan opened the passenger door. The universe. She got into the car. The seat was soft leather that felt like it wrapped around her. It smelled like a new car and something Jenna associated with money well spent. Logan got in on the driver's side. He fastened his seatbelt with his left hand, which took 3 tries and a murmured word Jenna pretended not to hear. Need help, she offered. No. He finally clicked the belt into place. I got it. Jenna smiled at her own reflection in the mirror. proud until the end. They pulled out of the parking lot. Seattle unfolded through the windows. Glass buildings, green trees that stayed alive even in constant gray, the Space Needle far away like a silent guardian of the city. "So," Jenna said, breaking the silence, "what exactly do I need to do in this meeting?" "Take notes, sign when needed, and do that thing you do," she frowned. "What thing?" "Turn disaster into comedy." He glanced at her. "You have a talent for it." Jenna wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a warning. "I'll try not to turn this meeting into a disaster then." "Too late. You're already in the car with me. Disaster guaranteed." She laughed, out loud, genuine. And she realized he was joking. Logan Ford, serious and controlled CEO, was joking with her. "Who are you and what did you do with the corporate robot?" 20 minutes later, Logan tried to eat a croissant. They had stopped at the drive-thru because Logan had skipped breakfast, and now he was trying to balance the croissant on his lap while driving with his only free hand, the left one. With every turn, the croissant tried to escape like it had a mind of its own. It was not working. Crumbs fell on the dashboard, the seat, his lap. "Oh no," he murmured, trying to grab a napkin while keeping the car in the lane. Jenna grabbed the croissant from his lap before anything worse happened. "Give it here before you cause a traffic accident because of pastry." She broke off a piece and offered it to him. Logan looked at the piece, looked at her. "You're feeding me?" "Technically, yes." Jenna kept her hand extended. "And you have 3 seconds to accept before I eat it for you." He opened his mouth. She placed the piece there. He chewed, looking both grateful and uncomfortable. "This is ridiculous," he said after swallowing. "You are ridiculous." Jenna broke another piece. "But I respect your stubbornness." They continued like that until the croissant was gone, Jenna feeding him small pieces while Logan pretended it was not happening. When they reached Bellevue, he parked and stared at the steering wheel for a long moment. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For the croissant?" "For everything. For being here. For not making me feel incapable." Jenna felt her chest tighten again. "You're not incapable. You're just temporarily challenged." She pointed at the sling. "And when that comes off, you'll be impossible to deal with again because you'll be so independent." He laughed. Finally, that laugh Jenna was starting to like more than she should. The meeting was in a glass office overlooking Lake Washington. Investors in suits, presentations on tablets, firm handshakes. Logan introduced Jenna with a sentence that almost made her trip over her own feet. "This is Jenna Riley, my essential assistant." Essential? The word echoed in her mind through the entire meeting. The investors were polite. They asked technical questions. Logan answered with precision and confidence. Jenna wrote everything down, signed where needed, and tried to look like she belonged there. But every time someone looked at her, at the borrowed shirt, the white sneakers with stains, the hair that never stayed fully in place, she felt the weight of the difference. "I don't belong here. These people know it. They see it." At the end of the meeting, one of the investors shook her hand. "Nice to meet you, Jenna. Logan is lucky to have someone so competent beside him." She smiled, thanked him, pretended she believed it. On the way back, Logan asked, "You got quiet after the meeting. Are you all right?" Jenna looked out the window. Seattle reappeared in the distance, covered by the constant fog. "I do not belong in that world," she said finally. "And that is okay, I know that. But for a second," she paused. "For a second, I wanted to belong." Logan did not answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and honest. "You belong anywhere you choose to be." He glanced at her. "And I want you to be here, with me, working with me. Not because I need you, but because He paused, searching for words, "like having you around." Jenna turned to face him, but he was focused on the road, his jaw tight, as if he had just said something too risky. "Logan, forget it." He shook his head. "Sorry, that was too personal." "It was not." Jenna smiled. "It was too sincere, which is worse or better. I have not decided yet." They laughed together, awkward and genuine. When the car stopped in front of the Ford Dynamics building, neither of them moved right away. "Thank you for going," Logan said. "Thank you for calling me essential." Jenna opened the door. "No one has ever called me that before." She got out, closed the door, started walking. "Jenna," Logan called out through the open window. She turned. "You are essential." And before she could answer, he drove off, leaving her standing on the sidewalk with her heart beating out of rhythm. Jenna murmured to her own sneaker, "We are in trouble." The sneakers squeaked against the concrete, as if saying, "You have no idea how much trouble." Jenna was writing her resignation letter on her phone when she realized it was the most ridiculous thing she had ever done. "Dear Logan, thank you for the opportunity, but I need to go back to the cafe because I clearly do not know what I am doing here. And eventually you will notice, and it will be uncomfortable for everyone involved. So I'm making things easier by leaving before that happens. Sincerely, Jenna, the girl who fed you a croissant yesterday." She deleted everything. Tried again. "Logan, I am not good at this, sorry." Even worse, she tossed the phone on the desk and buried her face in her hands. "Why am I like this?" she murmured to the pen on the table. "Why can I not accept that something good is happening without ruining everything?" The pen did not answer. But if it had, it would probably say something like, "Because you are scared, and fear makes us do foolish things." The office door opened. Logan walked in holding a tablet with his left hand. He had already gotten used to working with half his usual capacity. "We need to review the contract for." He stopped when he saw her expression. "Are you all right?" "I am great," Jenna lied, forcing a smile that was nowhere near convincing. "Very good. Wonderful." Logan placed the tablet on the desk and pulled a chair closer, sitting in front of her as if he had all the time in the world. "You are a terrible liar." "Thank you. It is a talent." He did not laugh. He just looked at her in that way that made Jenna feel too exposed, as if he could read every messy thought passing through her mind. "What happened?" he asked softly. Jenna looked at her own hands, at her sneakers, at anything except him. "I should not be here," she said finally. "All of this is temporary. You know that. I know that. And I am starting to forget it. I am starting to think I belong. And when the cast comes off, you will not need me anymore. And I will go back to the cafe, and it will hurt. So I would rather leave now, before it hurts more." Silence. Logan said nothing. He just stayed there, processing. Jenna picked up the pen from the table, mostly to have something to hold, and looked at his navy blue sling. "Can I?" she asked, pointing at the cast. He frowned, confused. "Can you what?" "Draw. Something small. Like a goodbye, since I probably will not have the courage to say it out loud." Logan hesitated. Then he extended his right arm, the immobilized, useless one, toward her. Jenna took the pen, and without thinking too much, drew something quick on the white cast covering his arm from the wrist almost to the elbow. A little duck, tiny, with big eyes and one wing raised as if waving. Under it, she wrote in small letters, "Thank you for everything, Jay." When she finished, she let go of his arm and placed the pen back on the table. Logan looked at the drawing, turned his arm slowly, analyzing the little duck from every possible angle. He said nothing. Not a single word. Jenna felt her stomach drop. "Great. Now he thinks you are childish. Congratulations, Jenna. You quit by drawing a duck on your boss." "Sorry," she said quickly. "It was silly. I can erase it." "Do not erase it," Logan interrupted, his voice sounding different. Rough. "Leave it." He kept looking at the drawing as if it were the most important thing in the world. And then, without warning, he stood up and walked out of the office. Jenna was left alone, her heart racing, and the absolute certainty that she had just ruined everything. "I messed up," she said to the empty chair where Logan had been sitting. "I messed up badly." The chair creaked, almost like it agreed. 10 minutes later, Miles Ford showed up. He didn't knock. He just walked in, as always, with that presence that filled the room and took the oxygen with it. "Jenna," he said, smiling in that way that wasn't really a smile. "I heard you're thinking about leaving." Jenna froze. "How do you—" "I pay attention." He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "And honestly, I think it's a smart decision." She frowned. "Smart, of course. You're temporary. Logan will recover, and when that happens, you become irrelevant." He tilted his head. "Better to leave now with dignity than be dismissed later." Jenna felt her blood boil, slowly, boiling. "You came here just to remind me I don't matter?" "No." Miles smiled again, that poisonous smile. "I came to make an offer." He pulled out a chair and sat, all casual, as if he were offering coffee and not poison wrapped like a gift. "You could work for me," he said, "as an operations assistant. Decent salary, a real contract, not this temporary arrangement you have with my brother." Jenna blinked. "Why would you do that?" Because you're efficient, and because you'd have access to useful information. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Information about how Logan operates, what he plans, where he fails. Oh, now it made sense. You want me to be a spy? Jenna asked, incredulous. I prefer the term internal consultant. Miles shrugged. But if you want to dramatize it, yes. Light espionage. Jenna stood up, slowly, controlled. Let me see if I understand. You want me to betray the man who treated me with respect, paid me more than I usually make, called me essential so I can help you tear him down? Miles didn't look the slightest bit embarrassed. When you put it that way, it sounds bad. Because it is bad. Jenna crossed her arms. And you know what's worse? You think I'd do that? You actually think I'm the kind of person who'd sell out someone who trusts me for a better paycheck. Everyone has a price, Miles said, far too casually. Maybe. Jenna leaned forward, placing her hands on the desk. But mine is not your dirty money. Silence. Miles stared at her, evaluating, as if recalculating something. Then he stood, adjusted his jacket, and walked to the door. What a shame, he said without looking back. You would have done well with me. I doubt it. He stopped at the doorway. You're going to regret this. Probably. Jenna straightened her shoulders. But at least I'll regret it with dignity. Miles left. The door closed, and Jenna dropped into the chair, trembling, not from fear but from pure, furious adrenaline. I just turned down a real job to protect a man who barely knows me, she muttered to the ceiling. I am officially out of my mind. The ceiling didn't answer. But the door opened again. Logan walked in, stopped, looked at her. Miles was here. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. He was, Jenna confirmed. He offered me a job. Logan didn't move. At all. And you? I said no. Obviously. Jenna rolled her eyes. Because I'm not the kind of person who takes a bribe to spy on my boss. Even if the boss is a stubborn workaholic who refuses help even with a broken arm. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, gratitude, and something else Jenna couldn't name. You're not leaving, he said. It wasn't a question. It was hope. Jenna looked at her own hand, at the phone still open to the resignation letter she never sent. I should, she admitted. It would be easier, safer, less complicated. But, she lifted her eyes, but I kind of drew a duck on your cast, and it would be very cowardly to leave before seeing your face when you show it to the investors by accident. Logan laughed, soft, surprised. And then he did something completely unexpected. He raised the arm with the cast, with the little duck drawn on it, and looked at the drawing again, as if it were museum art. I like the duck, he said, serious enough that he couldn't be joking. It has personality. Jenna covered her face with her hands. You're kidding. I'm not. He lowered his arm. And you're not leaving. Because I need you, not because you write for me, not because you sign contracts, but because you make me remember it's okay not to be perfect. Jenna felt her chest tighten again, that good, frightening way. That was very sincere, she said, her voice coming out weaker than she meant. I know. Logan smiled. That half smile Jenna was addicted to. I'm practicing. She shook her head, smiling too. Fine, I'll stay, but only until the cast comes off. Deal. They shook hands, left hand to right hand, awkward but perfect. And Jenna whispered to the little duck drawn on the cast, You just saved my job. Thank you, little duck. The duck didn't answer, but if it did, it would probably say, You're welcome. Now stop sabotaging your own happiness. Jenna didn't come back the next day. She didn't text, didn't call, she just didn't show up. And Logan Ford, CEO of a billion-dollar company, a man who handled meetings with international investors without blinking, quietly panicked. He checked his phone 17 times in 2 hours, wrote 3 messages he deleted before sending, tried to focus on work and failed completely. At 3 in the afternoon, he gave up. He grabbed his car keys with his left hand, which was finally becoming somewhat useful for basic tasks, and left the office without telling anyone. His destination, Brew and Rain Cafe. The rain was coming down hard when Logan parked in front of the cafe. The dramatic kind of Seattle rain, heavy, relentless. The whole city looked like a blurred watercolor of gray and green. He looked at the rain, looked at the cafe, looked at the umbrella on the passenger seat. You can do this. Just hold it with your left hand. Easy. It wasn't easy. He got out, tried to open the umbrella with one hand, and the thing opened in the most uncoordinated way possible, as if it had decided to act on its own. It opened crooked, turned the wrong way, covering everything except Logan. The rain hit him full force. Oh, for. He fought with the umbrella, trying to turn it the right way. The wind shoved it back. The umbrella flipped inside out. Logan almost let go, but held on because at that point it was a matter of principle. He finally managed to angle the umbrella sort of correctly, though he was now soaked from the waist up. He crossed the street dripping, holding the crooked umbrella like a broken shield from a lost battle. When he pushed the cafe door, the bell rang, and Jenna, who was behind the counter cleaning the espresso machine, looked up and froze. Logan stood in the doorway, soaked, hair dripping, crooked umbrella in his left hand, navy blue sling completely wet. He looked like a lost dog who had crossed the whole city to find its owner. "Hi," he said. Jenna blinked. Once, twice. "Hi?" Silence. Other customers turned to look. A girl in the corner took a picture, probably thinking it was some kind of art performance. Logan closed the umbrella, or tried. The thing got stuck. He pulled harder. It snapped shut and hit his own knee. He pretended it didn't hurt. Jenna covered her mouth, clearly fighting a laugh. "You came all the way here?" she asked, still processing the surreal scene. "I did." Logan leaned the crooked umbrella against the wall, where it immediately fell to the floor with a sad clang. "I needed to talk to you. You're soaked, I know. And you fought an umbrella and lost. I know that too." Jenna couldn't hold it. She laughed. Not a polite laugh, but a real one, the kind that shakes your whole body. Logan stood there, dripping on the wooden floor, looking both embarrassed and relieved to hear her laugh. "Could you?" He gestured toward the counter. "Step out for a minute. I need to talk to you, in private." Jenna looked at the manager, a 20-something guy who was clearly enjoying the drama. "Go," the manager said, waving her off. "I'll cover you, but you owe me every detail later." Jenna took off her apron, walked around the counter, and joined Logan at the door. He held it open for her, with his left hand because the right was still useless. They stepped onto the covered sidewalk, where the rain fell like a solid curtain just a few feet away. Jenna crossed her arms, waiting. Logan took a deep breath. Let it out slowly. "You didn't come back," he said. "No. Why not?" Jenna looked at the rain, at the gray sky. "Anywhere but at him. Because I was scared." "Of what?" "Of you." She finally looked at him. "Of liking the job too much, of feeling like I belong there, of forgetting it's temporary, and when it ends, when your cast comes off and you don't need me anymore, it's going to hurt. So I thought it would be easier to cut it now, like pulling off a bandage. Quick, painful, but at least it's over fast." Logan didn't speak, only the rain hitting the awning above them. "I don't want it to be temporary," he said at last. Jenna blinked. "What?" "I didn't keep you around just because my arm is broken." He took a step closer. "I kept you because you're good, because you make the work feel less suffocating, because you remind me that it's all right not to be perfect." He paused, tried again. "Because I like having you around." Jenna's heart skipped. "Logan, I know the corporate world isn't your dream. I know you're surviving. I know all of this feels too big and too overwhelming." He ran his left hand through his wet hair. "But give me a chance to make it worth it. Not as a temporary assistant, as part of the team. For real." Jenna felt her chest tighten, in that good and terrifying way at the same time. "And what if I mess everything up?" "You will." He smiled. "Small. Honest. And so will I. And we'll fix it together." She looked at him. Messy hair, soaked suit, wet sling, defeated umbrella thrown on the cafe floor. He had crossed the rain, literally, to talk to her. "You're ridiculous," she said, her voice softer than she intended. "I know. And you fought with an umbrella and lost. Also know. And you're dripping on the floor. Very aware of that." Jenna shook her head, smiling despite everything. "All right," Logan blinked. "All right?" "What?" "All right, I'll come back." She lifted one shoulder. "But only because I want to see you show that little duck on your cast at the next shareholders meeting." He laughed. Loud, genuine. The kind of laugh that changed his entire face. "Good. Because I wasn't going to erase it anyway." "Really?" "Really." He looked at his arm, at the cast where the duck was still drawn. "It grew on me, like the unofficial mascot of my recovery." Jenna covered her face with her hands, laughing. "You're impossible. And you draw ducks on people, so I think we fit." Silence, but the good kind, filled with something neither of them was ready to name yet. The rain kept falling. Logan took a step back. "I should go. You're working, and I'm soaked." And probably putting on a show for the cafe customers. Probably. Jenna pointed to the window. 3 people were clearly watching them. You've become entertainment. He waved at them. They waved back, completely shameless. So, tomorrow? Logan asked. 9 in the morning? 9 in the morning, Jenna nodded. But promise me you'll never fight with an umbrella alone again. No promises, she rolled her eyes. Logan grabbed the defeated umbrella, opened the cafe door, and stepped into the rain, which immediately soaked him again because he held the umbrella at the wrong angle. Jenna watched him cross the street, stumble slightly on the curb, and get into the car in the most awkward way possible. When he finally drove off, with the windshield wipers on full speed, Jenna went back to the counter. The manager was leaning on it, smiling like an idiot. So, he said, who was that? My boss. Kind of, technically. Your boss crossed the city in the rain to ask you to come back? Yeah, sort of. Jenna. The manager tilted his head. That's not a boss, that's something else. She put her apron back on, trying to ignore the warmth rising to her face. He just needs help with the broken arm. Of course, the manager didn't look convinced at all. That's why he fought with an umbrella like a romantic comedy character. Jenna didn't answer. Because she didn't have an answer. But when she went back to the espresso machine, she whispered to her reflection in the metal. We're in trouble. Serious trouble. The machine let out steam, as if saying, you finally noticed. Jenna was fixing Logan's tie, because he had tried to do it himself with his left hand, and the result looked more like a sailor's knot than a Windsor, when his secretary rushed in. Emergency meeting, she said, out of breath. Now, boardroom. Miles called it. Logan froze. Miles called it? He said it's about the Matsumoto contract. That the board needs an immediate decision. The secretary looked nervously between the two of them. And that you may not be in condition to lead the final negotiation. Jenna felt her blood turn cold. He can't do that, right? Logan was already standing, grabbing his tablet with his left hand, a movement that had become almost automatic. He can try. His voice was controlled, but Jenna heard the tension beneath it. And knowing my brother, he has a plan. When they arrived at the boardroom, it was already full. Directors, board members, the woman with the red glasses who had defended Logan before, and Miles standing at the head of the table with a smile that made Jenna's stomach twist. Oh, Logan, Miles said as if surprised. Glad you could make it. I know it's been difficult for you to move around lately. Logan did not take the bait. He simply sat in the chair next to the head seat, the chair that was traditionally his, but that Miles had strategically taken. Jenna stood behind him, holding the tablet like a shield. Miles clicked the remote. The giant screen lit up. Ladies and gentlemen, he began with that voice of a TED Talk presenter. I called this meeting because we received a proposal from the Matsumoto investors. They want to speed up the schedule, finalize the contract this week. But, he paused, looking directly at his brother, they have concerns about the current leadership ability at Ford Dynamics. Murmurs filled the room. Logan straightened. What kind of concerns? Miles clicked to the next slide. It was an email, in Japanese with a translation beside it. Jenna read it quickly, and her heart sank. Prefer to work with leadership that is operationally stable. Uncertainty about execution ability. Considering alternatives if the situation is not resolved. As you can see, Miles continued, far too satisfied, they want reassurance, and they suggested that perhaps I, as the fully functional chief operating officer, should take charge of the final negotiation for the good of the company. Silence. The director with the red glasses frowned. Miles, this seems convenient. Are you sure this email is legitimate? Completely. Miles enlarged the screen, showing the email header. It looked official. I received it last night, directly from Mr. Matsumoto. Logan stayed quiet. Too quiet. Jenna saw the defeat starting to settle on his shoulders. That subtle shift that happened when he began to believe Miles might be right, and she was not going to let that happen. Excuse me, Jenna said, raising her hand. Every head turned. Miles lifted one eyebrow. Yes, Jenna? Something relevant to add? Actually, yes. She walked around the table, took the remote from his hand, without asking, and enlarged the email header. This email is fake. Absolute silence. Miles blinked. Sorry? The email. It's fake. Jenna pointed at the screen. Look at the time. It says it was sent at 11 at night, Seattle time. But Mr. Matsumoto is in Tokyo, which is about 16 hours ahead. For him, it would be noon the next day. And I know he does not work at lunchtime because Logan mentioned that in the second meeting. The man is serious about his 2-hour lunch. Miles opened his mouth, closed it. One of the directors leaned forward. She's right. Matsumoto never sends email during lunch hours. Jenna kept going, and there's more. She enlarged the email footer. The automatic signature is wrong. The company name is written Matsumoto Industries Limited with a period, but the real company doesn't use a period. It's Matsumoto Industries Limited without punctuation. I know because I reviewed the original contract yesterday. The entire room was looking at her now. The director with the red glasses crossed her arms, a half-smile appearing. So you're saying Miles forged an email? No. Jenna placed the remote on the table. I'm saying someone sent an email to Miles pretending to be Mr. Matsumoto, and he, without meaning to, believed it without checking, which raises questions about operational judgment, in my humble opinion. Miles was red, truly red. I didn't. He looked around for support. Found none. I received that email. I didn't forge anything. Of course not. Jenna agreed sweetly. But maybe you should have checked before calling an emergency meeting to essentially start a corporate takeover against your own brother. Ooh. Someone at the table let out a soft, wow. Logan was looking at Jenna with an expression she couldn't read. Shock? Pride? Attraction? Probably all three. Miles grabbed his tablet, checked the email again, probably realizing for the first time that he had been fooled. I will look into this, he muttered, leaving the room faster than his dignity could follow. When the door closed, the director with the red glasses began to applaud. Slow, sarcastic, but genuine. Impressive, Jenna. Very impressive. Jenna felt her face warm. I just paid attention to the details. You saved this company from a disastrous leadership transition. The director looked at Logan. And you, Logan, are lucky to have someone like her at your side. Logan nodded, still looking at Jenna as if he were seeing her for the first time. The meeting ended quickly after that. The directors left, speaking quietly among themselves. The room emptied, until only Logan and Jenna remained. Silence. How did you know, he finally asked, about the email? Jenna shrugged. I pay attention to everything. I always have. It's a survival instinct. When you're always trying to prove you deserve to be somewhere, you learn to notice details other people don't even see. Logan stood up, slowly. He walked toward her. I do not deserve you, he said quietly. Probably not. Jenna smiled. But you have me anyway. He kept looking at her, in that way that made the air feel heavy and full. I was alone, he said suddenly. Before you. I did not notice it, but I was. Fighting alone, pretending I could handle everything alone. And when you showed up, he stopped, searching for the words. I realized I never had someone truly on my side. Not because I pay them, not because it is their job, but because you choose to be. Jenna's chest tightened. Logan, you saved me today. Again, he stepped a little closer. And it was not the first time, and I know it will not be the last, because I need you, not just for work, for... He gestured vaguely, frustrated with his own lack of clarity. For everything. Jenna swallowed hard. That is dangerous, she whispered. I know. I work for you, technically. That makes everything complicated. I know. And you still have that perfect corporate girlfriend waiting somewhere in your life that I do not know about. Logan frowned. What? I do not have a girlfriend. Not imperfect, not perfect. Really? Jenna? He smiled. That half-smile she loved. I barely have time to sleep. Do you think I have time for a relationship? She laughed. Nervous, relieved, fair. They stayed there, standing, too close, not close enough. Logan lifted his left hand, the only one that worked, and lightly touched her face. A brief touch, hesitant. Thank you, he said, for everything. Jenna placed her hand over his. You are welcome. And then, because the universe has terrible timing, the door opened. The secretary walked in, stopped, noticed the moment, and froze. Oh, sorry, I just came to pick up this pen that I definitely need right now, immediately. She grabbed a random pen from the table and hurried out. Logan and Jenna stepped apart. Awkward, laughing quietly. We are going to be office gossip, Jenna said. We already are. Logan picked up the tablet. Since the day you drew a duck on my cast, she covered her face. I am never getting over that, am I? Never. And as they walked out of the room together, Jenna murmured to her own reflection in the glass door. We are in so much trouble. The reflection agreed. Jenna did not sleep. She stared at the ceiling of her tiny apartment, listening to the rain against the window, replaying every moment of that almost something that had happened in the boardroom. His hand on her face. I need you, not just for work, for everything. And then the secretary had walked in, and the moment had evaporated, and Jenna had left the building pretending everything was fine when clearly nothing was fine. At 5 a.m, she gave up on sleeping. She picked up her phone, opened the messages, typed, I need to talk to you, deleted it. Tried again. About yesterday, deleted that too. Finally wrote, I am not going to sorry. Sent it before she could change her mind. 3 dots appeared right away. Logan was awake. Of course he was. But the dots disappeared. No answer. Jenna tossed the phone on the bed and murmured to the curtain, Great, now he thinks I'm out of my mind, or a coward, or both. The curtain moved slightly with the breeze from the poorly closed window, as if saying, You are both. Logan read the message 7 times. I am not going today, sorry. 3 words. 4, if counting the contraction. He started typing a response. Stopped, deleted it, tried again. All right, I understand. A lie. He did not understand anything. He tossed the phone on the desk and tried to focus on work. Failed. Tried to sign a document. The signature came out worse than a startled duck. It looked more like a dinosaur having a problem. At 10 a.m, he gave up. He grabbed a notepad, a pen, and tried to write a note. With his left hand. The result was creative. The letters looked as if they had been written during an earthquake. The lines went up and down with no pattern. The J in Jenna looked like a hook. The E looked like an A with an identity crisis. Logan looked at the note, crumpled it, tossed it in the trash, tried again. This time was worse. The words were readable, but barely. It said something like, Jana, with 2 N's because the first one came out crooked. I know yesterday was strange. He had skipped the E in strange by accident. But I need to talk to you, please. L, which looked more like a fallen 7. He looked at the note. It looked like a treasure map drawn by a 5-year-old. Perfect, he murmured to his own reflection in the computer screen. Exactly the image of competence I wanted to show. But he had no other option. He folded the note, put it in an envelope, and asked the secretary to deliver it to the cafe. Jenna received the envelope in the middle of the afternoon rush. A delivery driver handed it over. Official, with Ford Dynamics seal. She opened it right there at the counter. Between orders for lattes and cappuccinos, she read the note, and she covered her mouth so she wouldn't laugh out loud. Jana. He had written Jana, with 2 N's, and the handwriting was such a disaster it looked like a secret code. But she understood every word, every crooked letter, every desperate effort he made to reach her in the only way he could. Her chest tightened. Are you crying? Her coworker asked, worried. No, Jenna lied, quickly wiping her eyes. It's allergies. From the cafe dust. Her coworker didn't look convinced. Jenna folded the note, put it in her pocket, and went back to work. But every time she put her hand in her pocket, she felt the paper there. A reminder that someone had tried to reach her, even with the wrong hand. Even clumsy. Even imperfect. Please. He had written, please. Miles chose that day for his final move. He walked into Logan's office without knocking, as always, holding a tablet and a poisonous smile. Little brother, he said, all casual. We need to talk. Logan looked up from the papers he was trying to organize with one hand. Not now, Miles. Now. Yes. Miles set the tablet on the desk. Because I just got a very interesting call from the board. Logan froze. What kind of call? The kind that questions whether you're still fit to stay on as CEO. Miles tilted his head, pretending concern. Apparently, your dependence on a temporary assistant raised some red flags. They think you can't lead without excessive outside support. Silence. Logan felt his stomach drop. That's not true, isn't it? Miles turned the tablet toward him, showed an email, a real one, with 3 board members' signatures. They want an emergency meeting, tomorrow, to vote on a temporary removal until you recover fully. Logan read the email. Every word felt like a stab. Concerns about independent leadership ability, operational dependence on unqualified third party, best interest of the company. You did this, Logan said, his voice low but steady. You manipulated them. I didn't have to. Miles shrugged. I just showed the truth, that you can't sign a document, that you need a babysitter in every meeting, that your essential assistant is doing your job for you. Logan stood, slowly, controlled. Get out of my office. Gladly. Miles walked to the door, stopped, looked back. Oh, and Logan, your assistant show up today. I think even she realized the ship is sinking. He left. The door closed, and Logan sank into the chair, holding his head with his left hand, the only one that worked, but suddenly not enough to hold the weight of everything falling apart. Jenna was closing the cafe when she saw the message. It wasn't from Logan. It was from his secretary. Emergency meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Board will vote on removing Logan. He needs you. Please come. Jenna read it 3 times. Her stomach twisted. Removal. Because of her. Because he had depended on her. Because she had become the symbol of his weakness in the board's eyes. She replied, I'll be there. But when she put her phone back in her pocket, she felt the note still there. I need to talk to you. Please. She took the note out, looked at the disastrous handwriting, at the effort he had made just to reach her. I ruined everything, she whispered to the note. I ran when I should have stayed. The note didn't answer, but Jenna knew what she had to do. She grabbed her phone and typed, I'll be there tomorrow and we will fix this. Together. She sent it, waited. 3 dots appeared, and finally the response, Thank you. I was afraid to do this alone. Jenna felt her eyes burn. You're not alone. You never were. She left the cafe, crossed Seattle in the light rain, and went home. But before going to sleep, she set the disastrous note on her nightstand. That crooked treasure map, that desperate attempt to reach her. And whispered into her pillow, Tomorrow we fix everything. Somehow. The pillow didn't answer. But if it had, it would probably have said, You already decided, now you just have to show up. And she would, no matter the fear, no matter the doubt, she would show up, because Logan had shown up for her, soaked and holding a crooked umbrella. And now, it was her turn to return the gesture. The board meeting was a disaster, not literally, but emotionally, absolutely. Miles had prepared everything perfectly. 3 board members arrived with serious expressions. The director with the red glasses looked conflicted, and Logan sat at the head of the table, trying to look in control while clearly preparing to lose everything. Jenna walked in 2 minutes late, because the bus had been late, of course, and sat next to him without asking. Logan looked at her, surprised, relieved, grateful. She just nodded. I said I'd be here, so I'm here. Miles started his presentation. Graphs, data, operational decline evidence. Every slide was a stab disguised as corporate concern. But Jenna had prepared. When Miles finished, she raised her hand. Can I speak? Miles rolled his eyes. Jenna, this is a board meeting. You can't. Let her speak, the director with the red glasses said, crossing her arms. I want to hear. Jenna stood, took a deep breath, and dismantled every one of Miles's arguments with data, numbers, and facts she had spent the whole night putting together. Productivity? Up 12% in the last 3 weeks. Customer satisfaction? Highest on record. Closed contracts? 3 new ones, including Matsumoto. Logan isn't incapacitated, she concluded, looking straight at Miles. He's adapting, which is different. And if the ability to ask for help when needed is weakness, then half this board should also be removed. Silence. The director with the red glasses started clapping. Slow, firm, the others followed. Miles left the room without a word, and when the vote happened, it was unanimous. Logan would remain CEO. After the meeting, Logan caught Jenna by the wrist before she could leave. Thank you, he said. I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to. Jenna smiled, tired, relieved. We're a team, remember? He nodded. But there was something in his eyes, something unresolved. There's something I need to do, he said. Today. What? Get the cast removed. Jenna blinked. Today? Like, today? The doctor cleared it yesterday. I just postponed it, because... He looked at the cast, at the little duck drawn on it. I didn't want it to end. Jenna's heart skipped. Logan, come with me? He asked. To the appointment. I know it's strange, but I need you there. She didn't hesitate. Of course. The doctor's office smelled like disinfectant and nerves. Logan sat on the exam table holding his right hand still in the cast like he was saying goodbye to it. The doctor came in with a small saw. Ready for freedom? He asked, cheerful. Logan didn't look cheerful at all. Ready. The saw turned on, loud, vibrating. The cast began to crack. Jenna watched, holding her breath without realizing it. When the cast finally split open and was removed, Logan's arm was exposed, pale, thinner, vulnerable. The doctor tested movement. Bend, stretch, rotate the wrist. Perfect, he announced. You're free. Logan looked at his arm, flexed his fingers, closed his hand, opened it again, and then without warning he took the largest piece of the removed cast, the one with the duck drawn on it, and put it in his backpack. The doctor frowned. You want to keep the cast? I do. Logan didn't explain further. Jenna covered her mouth so she wouldn't laugh. They left the office together. Seattle was sunny, a rare miracle that happened maybe 3 times a year. Logan stopped on the sidewalk, looked at his right arm, moved his fingers again as if he still didn't believe they worked. 6 weeks, he said. 6 weeks depending on other people. And now it's over. Jenna felt something tighten in her chest. Over. That meant she wasn't needed anymore. The temporary job was officially finished. She'd go back to the cafe and Logan would go back to his life, and everything between them would turn into a strange story they'd laugh about someday. So, she said, forcing a smile, congratulations, you survived. We survived. He turned to her. Jenna, I know. She looked down at her feet. I know you don't need me anymore. And it's okay. Really, really. It was amazing, and I learned a lot. And I kept the cast, Logan said. Jenna froze. What? He opened his backpack, took out the piece of cast with the little duck, and held it like it was a relic. I kept it, he repeated, because I don't want to forget. Forget what? That you broke your arm? No. He stepped closer. That you showed up, that you stayed, that you defended me when no one else did, that you drew a ridiculous duck on my cast and turned the worst 6 weeks of my life into— He paused, searching for words. The best. Jenna felt her eyes sting. Logan, stop. You're being too sincere again. I know, he smiled, that half-smile she loved. But I can't stop, because I realized something. What? That I didn't need the cast to know who I want in my life. He held her hand, with his right hand, the newly freed one. I need you, not because you write for me, not because you sign contracts, but because you make me want to be better, more honest, less guarded, more human. Jenna covered her mouth with her free hand. You can't say things like that, she whispered. I'm gonna cry. Right here. On the sidewalk. In public. Then cry. He pulled her closer. And she did. Not much. Just enough to smudge the tiny bit of makeup she wore. I'm scared, she admitted, that this is temporary, that you'll realize I don't belong in your world. That Jenna. He held her face with both hands now, both working, both steady. You are my world. Silence. The good kind. Heavy. Full of everything neither of them needed to say out loud. That was the corniest thing you've ever said, Jenna murmured. I know. And I kind of loved it. I know. She laughed, crying, messy, happy. And then he kissed her. Right there. On the sidewalk. Under the rare Seattle sun. It wasn't perfect. He was too tall. She had to stand on her toes. Her glasses bumped his nose. But it was theirs. When they pulled apart, Logan tried to hug her with both arms. But his coordination was still a bit off after weeks of using only his left. His right elbow accidentally hit her side. Ouch, Jenna laughed. You just got that arm back and you're already attacking me with it? He tried again. This time it worked. A full embrace. Strong. Safe. Still relearning. Take your time. She rested her head against his chest. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. They stayed like that for a long moment. People walking by. Cars honking. Seattle being Seattle. So Logan said finally, what do we do now? Jenna looked up. Now you take me to get something to eat. Because I didn't eat anything today, I was so nervous about that meeting. Fair. He took her hand. Where do you want to go? Somewhere cheap? Because I still can't believe you're going to pay me a real salary. I already signed the contract this morning, with both hands. He smiled. You're officially a permanent member of the team. Jenna stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. Really? He turned to her. Executive assistant, decent salary, full benefits, and a boss who will occasionally need you to feed him a croissant when he forgets to eat. She covered her face, laughing. I accept all of it. Good. Logan started walking again, still holding her hand. Because I already told HR that you talk to inanimate objects, and they said it's fine as long as the objects don't respond. They do respond. Jenna looked at the street lamp beside them. Right, lamp? The lamp did not answer. Logan shook his head, smiling. You're impossible. And you like it? Unfortunately, yes. They walked together down the sunny sidewalk, Logan holding the cast with the little duck in one hand and Jenna's hand in the other. And when they passed the Brew and Rain Cafe, Jenna waved at the espresso machine through the window. "Thank you for everything," she murmured. "You brought me here." The machine didn't answer, but if it had, it would probably say, "You brought yourself here." "I just made the coffee." And it would be right, because Jenna had crossed the rain, had stayed when she could have walked away, had fought when it would have been easier to give up. And now, finally, she had found the place where she belonged. Not the cafe, not the corporate building, but beside him, drawing ducks on casts, feeding CEOs croissants, saving meetings, talking to objects, being exactly who she had always been, and being loved for it. And that's how Jenna Riley, the barista who could barely pay rent in Seattle, saved a billionaire CEO from losing everything, and discovered that the biggest contract of her life wasn't written on paper, it was drawn on a cast in the shape of a little duck. What did you think of Jenna's transformation? From insecure barista to executive assistant who turned everything around? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story? And if your heart warmed watching Logan fight an umbrella in the rain just to apologize, or if you would also talk to a coffee machine at 5 in the morning, you need to subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications to get more stories like this. Because here we believe everyone deserves a happy ending, even if they have to draw a duck along the way.